Hello and welcome to the QA Therapy podcast. Are you looking to improve your overall testing and quality practices? My name is Sergio Freire and I'm solution architect and testing advocate at Xray.
My name is Cristiano Cunha, and I'm also a solution architect and a test advocate at Xray. And we'll be your hosts and QA therapists throughout this series. In this podcast, we are going to tackle some of the most common testing and quality challenges that we all face in our teams. Today, we have a fascinating topic that blends two critical testing methodologies: exploratory testing and performance testing. And to help us navigate this intersection, we have a special guest, Leandro Melendez. But before welcoming him, let's just see what brings you here. What are the symptoms that you may be feeling that have brought you to listen to this podcast? So ask yourself, do you have difficulties in approaching performance evaluation for your application or product? Or do you think that performance testing is only done at the end of the development cycle? Or are all of you convinced that the only output of exploratory testing is problem identification? Have you had a hard time imagining how to do exploratory testing for performance?
All these are symptoms that maybe we are not performing the testing we should. We may assume that performance testing is only about doing it in an automated way, and there is no room to explore, or we are just unable to adjust our delivery to incorporate exploratory sessions in it. Exploration in performance scenarios bring advantages, but may be hard to implement in a recurrent way. Let's dive a bit into this topic. And today we're excited to welcome back, Leandro Melendez for his second appearance on the podcast. Yoo-hoo! The last time he joined us, we delved into performance testing, but this time is here to explore the powerful combination of performance testing and exploratory testing. With nearly 20 years of experience in IT and a decade focus on performance and load testing, Leandro, also known as Señor Performo, has worked with top tiers tools like Rollrunner, Gmeter, NeoLoad, and so many. He's a podcast host, global conference speaker, and a key contributor to the PerfBytes podcast in Spanish. Welcome, Leandro, once again, or should I say Señor Performo. Are you comfortable on our QA therapy couch?
Oh, yeah. Welcome, everyone that is tuning. Thank you, amigos. Hola, everybody. I'm super happy when you were cheering and everything. I almost did a Mexican shout. And I'm super excited, feeling all the pains that you're describing about these performance illnesses that we may find in the industry. Let's get some therapy.
Yeah. So to get the show running, Leandro, let's start with the really very basics. And you know that there are still many people that don't know exactly what is performance testing. So in a nutshell, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Of course. I mean, it's kind of hard to keep it in a nutshell because this is my usual rant. Performance testing is doing three things: validating, verifying, and checking all this, testing about our software on three main topics. Mostly, point number one, número uno, response time. We want to know how fast is our application responding. Number two, número dos, it's the efficiency of this application. How many resources do we need for this application to be working? Either on the server or on the client side, because so many times we don't pay attention to the client side, which poor little laptops have to be like gaming laptops to be able to open your application. That should not be the case. You cannot open more than 2 tabs before Chrome dies with our application. No, that's not good performance. And point number three is in different circumstances. And here's the key one, because many think that the main circumstance, everything to performance testing, is load testing, when we're trying to bring down the system with a lot of people using it, which is not the case. Well, it is, but it's like a 5% of the case of performance testing that we should be paying attention to. There are so many other ways, circumstances, places, as I mentioned, the browser is one of them, where we should be paying attention to, and it doesn't have to do with a lot of users having activity on our system at the same time, or trying to buy Taylor Swift tickets or things like that. So Yeah, that's performance testing. It's a wide practice of making a system fast, efficient with resources under multiple circumstances. Which one? That is the key concern. Which circumstance is what I think we're going to talk about.
Since we are talking about definitions, I think, Cristiano, you are going to ask something about that.
Yeah, about definitions. So let's continue on definitions. And as we are linking both subjects today, what is your definition of exploratory testing?
So exploratory testing for me, it's a little bit when you are just using the system. And here's where I divide. On one side is like the general user cases, like, yeah, I'm a user, I'm going to be clicking here, I'm going to be clicking there. And the other side is what I call the toddler path, where toddlers are really good to click on weird things on your system to see what happens. And to me, that's a very strong point in exploratory testing. Like, what if I already filled my form completely and then I click this? Oh, everything got wiped. Is that a good behavior? Is that something that we want the system to do? So you're playing around your system, checking what things, how they should behave. And if they don't behave like that or they behave weirdly, you gotta touch base and see, like, is this a defect? Should we pay attention to it? And last, I would not recommend to do exploratory testing with automations. This is in the kitchen, manual, put love in it and put all your effort on it. I think that manual exploratory testing is the best, and especially by random people. When you have random inputs, you get, in my experience, the best outcomes of exploratory testing. Crazy things come up.
Yeah, every one of us brings like a different value, a different perspective to the table, right? Performance is like this subject that causes sometimes like fear in the teams, and it's understood as being something really too technical. Maybe something like security testing, if we can compare, and requiring like high infrastructure needs. Do you think it still continues this way, or nowadays we can approach performance testing in a different way that is more easy to adopt?
So I think here a big part of the problem is this definition that I started with. For many, performance testing is a synonym of load testing, capacity testing, pushing the system to its limits, make it cry, and all those type of things, where that's not the case. Performance testing, again, you just need to know that the application is efficient. And an interesting element is that you shouldn't be pushing the application to its limits until you know that the application behaves well on little limits, right?
Right.
I always give this example that, yeah, let's test the performance of our new Formula One car, but it has a flat tire. Do you need to raise the car to know that it has a flat tire? No, you just roll it a little bit and you will figure out that there are problems, that there's a leak of oil, that there are, until you fix all that and you make sure that the performance there is good, don't dare to raise it. And in this, I think that on one hand, exploratory testing can bring a lot of benefits, and generally that's the first step that I recommend for a performance testing effort. Use the app and measure the response times. You have no idea how many times an app that's supposedly tested and on production, blah, I come click 3-5 minutes on it and like, hey, slow performance here, there, heavy image, you have a huge JavaScript here, blah, 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 blah. No one even paid attention to all of those things. And I just did it by hand with a browser. That's all the things that you need to start doing that. So as a starting point, I would say you don't have to be super technical. You just need to understand what to look for and in which ways you have. Browsers are super powerful nowadays to give you those informations. And another big thing that might be a little bit more technical is observability. If you enable observability in your software, instrument it, put telemetry on it, add agents, all the one-on-ones of observability, and you start gathering that information for manual and exploratory tasks in the dev machine, in the pre-prod environments, whatever, staging, QA, whatever you want to call it, you will start to notice performance problems manually or leveraging any of the other teams' testing efforts like functional automation, security, user acceptance testing, whatever you think of, you will already be seeing performance metrics if you did this. And you don't need any technical prowesses or be super deep into the webs and be able to see the lady in the red dress in the Matrix code. No, you just need to be aware of those metrics. Yes, the first step, enabling this observability and making the whole team to be able to see like, ooh, that new bottom that we're trying to push to production is slow on itself. Back. Let's fix it. When you push it back, you don't need technical processes because the devs or whoever is the technical person will fix it up, hopefully. And where do you need to be a bit more deeper is for load testing and automated capacity testing, pushing the system to its limits. But even this should not be done often. In continuous agile environments, leave those capacity tests for when you know that Taylor Swift is coming, that you are going to have a huge Super Bowl ad promoting your site or things like that. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, tax season also is a good one. Obamacare, the classical example. When you know that that's coming, of course, yes, please push the system to the limits to make sure that it's going to handle. But on a continuous integration basis, just make sure that that new button gets to its place without wreaking havoc. And if it survived already in your previous sprint, most probably will keep surviving. And if you are monitoring, you will detect if it doesn't do well in production, and you will be able to roll back right away, fix it, and just keep pushing forward. So yeah, by hand. And I didn't talk almost at all automations. People using your system is showing these things like someone told me, can you believe the generated people that are releasing into production without doing load tests? These degenerates were Facebook engineers that, yeah, of course, many times they do, and they don't need to because they follow these principles. So many things that exploratory testing with observability, oh my God, you're covered in performance 90%.
So you kind of answer my next question, that is, can we do exploratory testing in performance? But as you kind of lift the veil and you say, you even give an example, which is good. I'm going to transform this question a little bit. So can you do it? And if you can, in what phase of the process should we do it? At the end, at the beginning, everywhere?
Everywhere. No, what was the title of this movie? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once?
All at once,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's how I suggest to pay attention to performance. Again, not load testing, performance, that you want to know the performance of your software. If you have all these elements that I mentioned, observability, well-instrumented system, some automations, you may need some. I won't say go out there all naked. Bring at least a short. And at the same time, if you have some practices like release techniques, blue-green, A/B, canary, all these things that will give you a quick taste of, and let your users do the exploratory testing. Let your developers do the testing. While they are acting, you will get performance metrics. You are like, gimme mine. You'll be, I at times think of Gollum, my precious, and you have the thing, right? Your precious performance data that you're going to be able to analyze in staging, in pre-prod, in the developers' machines. It has not been released, and you know.
Leandro, I think you are already kind of answering the question that I had on my.
Oh boy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's really good, because I was going to ask, whenever we do, like, say, performance testing in an exploratory way, if our primary goal was to find defects, but you are kind of already answered it. We find information, right? We find this metrics information, and that is key for us to understand how the system behaves, right? Not everything is like a bug, but it's really important to understand where the point where the software is, right?
Yeah, and with some of these techniques that I'm telling you, you, on one hand, don't need load testing unless you have these big situations on a continuous basis. I always bring this example, Facebook. Again, they do a lot of performance things pretty well, in my opinion, where I remember my brother would get the new version of Facebook on those days when it was like, oh, it's a huge change. Now there's like a smiling emoji, not just a like or blah. And I'm like, why did you get it? And I didn't, dude. And without knowing, he was kind of part of like unwilling beta testers, where a decent volume of people get this new version that you have been working on, and they are load testing your system. And it's a segment that for some reason my brother was low risk and he could have performance problems, and Facebook decided he was a good target to get the new version first. You can do this with different world locations if your application is worldwide, or even, as I said, willing beta testers who is not happy to get the newer version of Gmail or any Google product. You sign up most of the time for those things. So that's exploratory, and you get not only the benefit of people, real human beings, even the toddlers clicking on your application, but you get utilization patterns. You get a lot of information, and this is part of performance and part of exploratory and business intelligence, I would say. Even again with Facebook, suddenly you get that recommendation to send a friend request to this girl that you really like, but you just saw her like for 3 seconds, and Facebook knows. Somehow they know, but it's because they have these metrics. They know that you were looking at the picture for a few seconds. You clicked from that picture then to another website or something like that. And that is really good business intelligence. You know what your users are doing, but also exploratory testing. If some error or something weird happens in terms of performance, functional, or whatever you can think of, you know what was the path of that user, how to reproduce it, what was happening, where they clicked. So that's why it is so important to have observability for your performance and so many other areas.
That's a very, very interesting topic, observability.
Testers generally do not pay so much attention to it. Oh, because here's another mind-blowing observability of your tests.
Right.
Because that's another one that many teams, they don't know how their testing suite is doing without logging to a big platform or opening the tool that they are using. Well, with observability, they can just leave the tests run, and even from their cell phone or in the movies or whatever, get an email, see a dashboard, or know how many cycles have passed. So some of these things are incredibly powerful. And the performance of your tests, that's also important. How many teams do not wait for hours and hours and hours for their hundreds of functional tests to finally execute, holding the sprints, holding all the CI/CD? That's also important to have in mind.
But everything is connected. When you talk a little bit about how your application must be ready for observability, in the back of my mind, I have an extra step that is I need to make my application testable. So testability is on there. So you need to have that in order to reach observability. And we talk it as it is so easy, but sometimes it's so challenging. I want to ask you, what are the challenges if one team does not care about performance or exploratory testing, or is not in the place where they are using it? Because sometimes we don't start it by performance, we don't start by exploring things, we just go and do whatever we can to put things
pray.
in production and prepare the tissues to cry afterwards. But
you just
nevertheless,
do the blessing and hope for the best.
So what do you think are the risks for the teams that are not using exploratory testing and performance testing?
So the risk-wise, yeah, they might get an application that is non-performant, and they might not identify all these things, especially if they don't pair exploratory with performance, observability, and gathering these metrics. I had this problem so many times. 1 week before Waterfall Big Bang release in the old days, and I get this software like, quickly, you need to do an automation for all these business processes, slam the system, do performance load testing. Well, they said performance, but it was load testing. And so that we can release. Okay, yeah, I start to work my automations, just recording them. One or more processes are stupid slow. Like I'm not even saying like slightly failing. No. They are taking 10, 15, 20 seconds and even timing out. And I'm like, hey, we have an issue here, performance related, not load related, that is gonna throw out the window our load tests. Why no one catched it? Why no one paid attention to this? Why no one did like some clicking while they were using it or developing it and said like, is it normal that this takes 15 seconds? Probably not. So I think that's another problem where teams that they don't do this type of actions. This project did not go live on the date. This project did go live, I think, 4 months later because of situations like that. And it was a multi-million-dollar project. To give another example, if the problem that happens at times, how would I fix it? Because, Cristiano, you mentioned it's kind of complicated or hard. Truly, it's not that much when you figure it out. There are a couple of steps that can be, I'm not sure if calling it tricky, because many times you just install an agent and you get all sorts of observability for your software. Yeah, it's pretty out of the box most of the times. There are a few ones where like, oh, it's a weird kernel. You have this blah. You have to go and just pretty much rewrite the kernel to get some metrics. But the big majority of times, you just install that and you get a lot of metrics from all the systems. Oh, but it's so expensive to install the agent, blah, blah. Okay, so would you dare multi-million-dollar project, multiple months to fall behind and to not to pay a little bit or make it yourself, because it's not everything pay. It's not horrible, but the biggest problem is that many teams do not know that there's that possibility. And the worst, many testing teams that don't know they have observability already. They don't leverage it. They don't leverage because, it's something that it's like, ooh, magic wizard, hidden knowledge and stuff that many teams don't dare to even touch it or look at it. They discard it like, oh, that's the super deep techie stuff. No, I'm just my automations and doing this exploratory by hand and measuring with my watch and the performance. Where, as I said, just with a browser, you get a lot of great metrics with the developer tools. But if you have observability on top, you can know what's going on with the browser, what's going on with the server, using exploratory testing or using just users in the system.
As you are talking, Leandro, I was thinking about the risks, and sometimes if we don't care about performance, for some products, they may just consider it whenever they look at the churn rate, like whenever people start leaving their products and they don't understand what is that, why did that happen? And sometimes the reason is that the products become slower, bloated. It's just too late, right? It's going to be harder to fix.
Yeah, it's there are multiple elements on what you mentioned. On one hand, as a user, when you find a non-performant application, and again, it doesn't have to do anything with load. Many times when I land on a site and it's just spinning there, I know that it's not overloaded, and I'm not asking for a big process or something. Just tell me what's my balance in my bank account, to give an example. Those sites where it's like they even tell you like, for the sake of God, please don't close this browser, even if it takes 5 minutes, because we're processing this thing. We promise we're slowly doing it. When a user walks into those sites, they may come back, but on the second, third time that they find the same behavior, I never, ever have opened a page like that. And not only in terms of response time, again, the sites that if I have 2 other tabs open in Chrome, my whole computer crashes when I try to access that site. That's awful performance as well.
Yeah.
So you lose users on one hand, and on the second, the longer your non-performant processes are on production, the more expensive they are. The further they get into the software development life cycle, the more expensive they are, the more impactful they become, the more users you lose. So I could speak for a whole hour of all the reasons why you should be paying attention.
Do you think exploratory testing is different for front end than for back end, connecting also that with performance testing?
That's a very good point and question, because front end, definitely. Front end is actually the main way that I would say, please don't automate on the front end anything, unless that's the only way that you can test a system. Whatever you want to test in the front end, do it manually, quickly gather your performance metrics, and you're good. Oh, but what happens when the system is overloaded? Okay. Do a back-end load test with just API calls, blah, and then use manually your system by hand. It's way cheaper than automating. And if you want an automation, just have 1 or 2, but don't overload it. Now, exploratory testing on the backend, which generally is done with APIs, with database queries, I feel like that's more programmatic. I would say that should be more automatable. But still, who has not had weird reactions from an API when you are trying to manually call it? So that's where you got me thinking, you may find some things, but at the API level, I think the most versatile, yes, is automated. I'm not discarding exploring APIs, but I don't know if the benefit would be the same as exploratory testing in the front end, where you can really, really go crazy. The APIs are just like straightforward. You just can input these fields and that's it. Yeah. So usually not much to explore, but weird fields. Yeah, explore what happens if I send an emoji to this API, of course.
Yeah, I remember so many times that we validate or we try to explore the performance on front end, and then we see the bottleneck in the back end, and then we need to go there and understand what's happening there. So I think the sum of both is important, and I agree with you. And for performance and probably security, and all those kind of tests that are in need of more technical approaches, I would call it assisted, because you need to use tools, you need to use scripts probably to explore. Even if you're doing manually and following your ideas, you need to do it that way. So yeah, assisted, I think it's the way, and nowadays we need to do it as fast as we can. So
you just mentioned security testing. That's one where I would leave it to exploratory, because yes, you have these tools that have batteries of tests for APIs that you type the usual security holes. But there's always the creativity of white hat hacker that can put something really nasty that the battery of tools doesn't have. There, I would say probably, yes, try exploratory and have an expert exploring that, please.
The next question I have here is, as much as you say that exploring performance is really easy and we should go for it, I feel that sometimes the feeling is people are afraid to do so, and we need to demystify all of those things. Like you said, go and open your developer tools. Can you suggest some heuristics to assist performance testing?
So first of all, I would say performance testing is not automating these JMeters, load runners, or K6s that everyone thinks. And I think that's a big part that throws off most of the community. Yeah. You can, again, measure performance and test it manually. Let that sink in. I feel probably many tool vendors try to foster this. Are you going to have a room full of people clicking at the same time, blah, blah, blah? Which, yes, you can with release techniques. But, and that room full of people are your real users and all that I said earlier. But it's not, that was load testing again. You want to know the performance of your system. The other element that I think that scares people or pushes them like, whoa, I'm not getting there. It's the tab that is called developer tools in your browser, where many QA people we know, they say whatever developer, and it's almost like when you try to give your cat a shower or something like that. I think that breaking that, losing, being less afraid of that function in your browser, many Selenium automators, Playwright, the one with C, can't remember. Cypress, all those. Yeah, you have to get in there to know where are the selectors and all the things that you have to put together. Just jump into the network tab. There you will find a plethora, a treasure of information related to performance. And it's not rocket science. As long as you understand a little bit of what is happening there, you have so many capacities of identifying performance issues early with just one user. Again, 80% of the problems of performance in a system happen for one user. You don't need to go load testing. And then you can catch so much. The last I hear, but how am I going to prove it's not logged automatically, blah, blah, blah. Take a freaking screenshot, please. We have this, there's a tool that specializes in screenshots, has like an espresso coffee, mocha, something like that. Because it takes shots of coffee. Do that. And that's your proof of slow performance. Any browser, all of them have those capacities. You can take a screenshot and say, hey, this image is 8K resolution and those shouldn't be on the main page, and it's taken half a second to load. Well, just half a second. Yeah. That's bad when you're a single user. Just you. I mean, it's just one user, not being single. There's no problem with being single. So in that sense, I would say those three things. It's not rocket science automation, performance testing. You just need a browser. You just can take screenshots. And the cherry on top, if your team already has observability, just check those metrics. You will find so many things to report. I used to joke, these teams that had these metrics like, hey, we'll give a prize to the person that logs the most bugs right away. I won that several times because it's just like, okay, I'll just jump in my observability platform. Okay, this is slow. Oh, there's an exception there. Hold here. It's like a freaking Christmas tree of defects and slow performance. Functional defects as well. So, yep, okay. Yeah. In one day, I logged like 50 defects.
50?
Yeah. Even won a prize where in a quick swipe, and they just let us log all the problems with quick screenshot, not to put too much information. 250 in one day.
Oh man.
Okay.
Of which 60% were performance, the rest were functional. Exceptions, problems here and there. So,
yeah.
Are you drooling hearing this? Aren't you excited? Like, you can be the star of your team if you start doing this, right?
Easily.
Leandro, so as time flies, it's easy to get in a conversation with you. I always like to kind of end with an invite for further learning, and for our listeners that are curious and want to learn more about performance testing and also exploratory testing in their companies, where do you suggest them to start from?
To start off, I mean, and this is going to sound very modest, but hit me up. I'm on all the social networks, Leandro Melendez or Señor Performo. You can find me, and I'm always open and happy to answer questions, give you information. I have 2 YouTube channels, Señor Performo English. If you want, I try to post content there, and Señor Performo Español, where if you also want to try your Spanish. And I try to talk technology, performance, IT, QA, blah. Speaking of those, I like YouTube a lot in general for learning and gathering information. There are so many awesome content creators around the QA realm. I definitely count you 2 among them. I highly recommend people subscribe podcasts, YouTube, webinars, online stuff. There's no excuse for, it's so pricey, this conference and blah, blah. There are free ones, and there are awesome talks on all of them, and blogs. And if you can go to an in-person conference, for the people listening, that's how I met these 2 awesome gentlemen, just randomly at a conference, and was super cool. So, and you will meet people, learn a lot, and get deeper into whatever topic. You'll find a guru or someone that is extremely knowledgeable in whatever you're trying to learn. Just stick to them, buy them a coffee, and I'm sure that you will get a lot of learning all over the place. Blog posts, books, and I think, yeah, that's overwhelming already.
So once again, thanks for being here with us, Leandro, and helping us understand how exploratory testing can meet with performance testing and why it matters and why we should deeply embrace it. It was a pleasure.
As always.
My honor. I always like to come back here, and if you need more information, I'll be happy to come back, help the people. If anyone has questions, you can hit me. And gracias, amigos.
Gracias. Obrigado.
Muito obrigado. Sim.